Now, the fight for the seat of Gilmore is heating up ahead of the federal election. Former New South Wales National Party Minister Katrina Hodgkinson has now confirmed she will be running for the Nationals. She'll be up against Warren Mundine, who was the Prime Minister's pick to take over from St Marlis as the Liberal Party's candidate. And Warren Mundine joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, about, 100 days or less until federal election. Is it enough for you to achieve what you need to achieve in the campaign?
Look, it's always going to be a tough battle to win the seat. So, but I'm up for it. It's getting out there and meeting people, chatting to them, and taking up the fight for the Prime Minister.
And a bit of hoo-ha over how you became the candidate. Some people upset with internal machinations of the Liberal Party. Is that a setback in practical ways? Have you lost some support of grassroots members who didn't like it?
Look, people have moved on from there because really what the battle is about is how do we stop Bill Shorten from getting to be Prime Minister, and how do we return Scott Morrison and the coalition government? That's the main focus. And members of the party are now coming on board. I've had several meetings with the executive of each of the branches and now I'm going to each of the branch meetings as well as going out there and meeting with the constituents out there, the people of the Gilmore electorate, and listening to them and focusing on that battle.
Okay, so at the last election, very small margin, I don't need to tell you, but just when you look at how many votes were in it, just 1,500 votes. Are you conscious of, taking on perhaps an impossible task?
Look, I always love a challenge, and I'm very committed to returning the Morrison government, and also very committed to make sure that Bill Shorten doesn't get elected to be Prime Minister. If we don't win the seat of Gilmore, then you can kiss everything else goodbye. So we're going to make sure that we're going to be out there every day, arguing and fighting to retain this seat and to deliver for the people of Gilmore.
All right, now I was speaking with St Marlis yesterday on whether she'd be out there with you campaigning for you as the Liberal Party candidate, and she said she'd basically leave it to you. Would you prefer to have her help?
Look, I prefer everyone to be helping and working with us to drive forward. I've had several meetings with Anne and conversations. I've been into her office several times now. Her team and people there have been helping her with stuff. And so we'll continue to get that support and drive forward. As Anne said, the real battle is how do we stop Bill Shorten from becoming Prime Minister, and that's what it's about. And
senior Liberal and former member for Gilmore, Jo Gash, throwing her support behind Katrina Hodgkinson. Does that hurt?
Look, I know I'm in for a battle of my life. I know I'm there, but it's not about my battle. My battle is not the important thing. The important thing is how do we deliver for the people of Gilmore, the electorate of Gilmore? How do we ensure that we get the Princess Highway fixed? How do we ensure that the retirees, we have a very large group of people living who are retirees in Gilmore, to make sure that they haven't got this retiree tax? How do we deal with the rent tax? How do we deal with a number of issues? And also now the refugee issue. So we're going to fight tooth and nail for all of that.
All right, so the electoral boundary changed a few years ago. I think this is the first term where Gilmore has included Bateman's Bay and Moruya. No doubt that changes the shape of things a bit. Will the branches in the southern end of Gilmore come out and campaign for you, Warren?
Yes, they will. I actually met with them on Sunday. We had a good conversation and had lunch and a good conversation. Nick Grinder, the president, the national president of the Liberal Party, was down for that meeting and that as well. The response was fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to working with those branches. In fact, I'm looking forward to working with all the branches and all the members and also our supporters to deliver at the end of the day.
No doubt you're clocking up the kilometres already on the ground in Gilmore. What have you discovered as the main issues around Bateman's Bay and Moruya that you will be campaigning on?
Well, it all gets back to the basics. You've got the bridge at Bateman's Bay that needs to be fixed. That fits in with the whole Princes Highway redevelopment. The government, the federal government, the state government spent really good money and spent a lot of time on the Pacific Highway. Look, I don't discourage that because of the terrible accidents that are happening up there and fixing that road. We have similar things down here in Gilmore and the South Coast in regard to the Princes Highway. With the state government has done some wonderful stuff up around Kiama and Berry, and that now we want to do the stuff south of the Shoalhaven and start fixing all that road all the way down.
Do you think we'll see an announcement from the coalition in this election campaign, a significant announcement to that end?
We're going to be making a lot of announcements when we get past this state election, because we need to also be focused. If we've got a state election on, we need to get the return of these, the candidates, the members of parliament that we do have here, and Gareth Ward, and Shelley Hancock, and Constantine, and that. We've got Andrew Constant. We've got to get those people back elected. That's our first focus. But the other focus is that we're not sitting on our bottoms. We're actually having conversations with the federal government as well about how we can work jointly with our state colleagues to get these outcomes we need to have.
On the Eurobodalla Hospital, we know about the state government's $150 commitment, and now federal Labor has committed $25 million to throw into the mix as well. Do you think the federal Liberal Party can match that or better that?
Look, you'll hear the announcements, not for me to make announcements here today. You'll be hearing announcements about a number of projects that are going to create jobs, that are going to provide the best services that we can get in Gilmore electorate. We had a couple of them last week in regard to South Care and in regard to Dunn Lewis Foundation. And so, you're going to hear a lot more of these coming out as we go along.
All right. And in a couple of days, the Closing the Gap annual report card on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander wellbeing is going to be released. Are you a supporter of that approach and this government's track record when it comes to Indigenous affairs?
Well, first of all, I'm a supporter of that. We've got to have measurables in regard to, so we can have clear, so we know where outcomes and have clear outcomes put out there. And then we can measure it and see if we're meeting our targets and we're driving ahead. Look, I reckon the best policy that any government's ever done was the Indigenous procurement policy. In 2015, that was about $6.7 million going to Aboriginal businesses. As of this date, it's $1.2 billion going to Aboriginal businesses, and it's created over 1,000 Aboriginal businesses out there, which we know 70% of the people employed in those businesses are Aboriginals. And so these are the things that are going to make the difference in closing the gap.
All right. Now, I know to some extent this is ancient history, a question you've addressed who knows how many times, but as it's the first time we've spoken on air and someone's prompting me on the text line, people wondering, your change from Labor to Liberal, and I guess more to the point, how can your principles change from one party to another at the opposite end?
Look, my principles hasn't changed. Anyone sees any of my writings, I write regularly. Anyone read my book? My principles about jobs, about the workers, and getting people into jobs and building businesses and building economies. These are the things that are able to then, through the tax system and that, pay for the schools, pay for the hospitals, pay for the roads, and that hasn't changed one iota. What has changed is that the Labor Party has moved further to the left. And what it's doing now, especially when you look at the retiree tax, you're looking at people who have worked hard all their life, put aside a bit of money to help them in their retirement, and now the Labor Party is going after them. They have lost the plot in regard to working Australians.
Warren Mundine, no doubt we will talk regularly when the election officially kicks off, and thanks for speaking with ABC Sth East this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, and thank you, listeners.
Warren Mundine is the Liberal Party's candidate for Gilmore, already out there campaigning ahead of the election campaign kicking off properly.